thought I'd do another little live where we talk about any problems we're having, either canning or gardening, whatever you like. So you just drop down anything you want to know or ask me in the comments, and I'll go through everything that I can possibly think of to help you with your garden this season. So yeah, yay. So we're having like a really hot season this year, and I actually did a poll on my channel a little while ago, and overwhelmingly it's been the drought, the lack of rain, etc., being the worry for everyone. So I thought I'd like sort of rattle off the things that we need to do watering wise. So talking about watering, the main things that need to be watered really are going to be anything that's fruiting. So if your strawberries are still fruiting, they need to be watered. If your cabbages are about to crop, they need to be watered. But there are some things that you can reserve water on, especially if you're on a meter or if you've got rainwater butts and you're, you know, to the bottom of them. And that's perennials that are really well established. They don't need so much water, and anything that's not actively fruiting, you can actually not water them. So it's worth bearing that in mind, especially if you are, like I said, on a meter or relying on water butts and they're quite low at the moment. Things that definitely do need to be watered are seeds, particularly if you just sowed carrots. I sowed carrots today, so they definitely need watering every single, if not every day, then like most days. I'd say every day if they're carrot seeds. Anything that's just sprouted as well needs to be watered. I like to baby them, so like every day. Or something that is fruiting, they're the major things. If you've got a perennial and you've just planted out, or any annuals that have just been planted out, they do need water consistently as well. So it's really thinking about what you have and using that. If you have got overhead sprinklers, that's great, I use those, but there are certain things that don't like them at all. So things like tomatoes, they're going to be really susceptible to diseases. I did read today that cabbages are, but I've never found that to be the case. And I've actually read that they benefit from having their leaves wet. So it's one of those things, isn't it? Some people say, you know, some people say you can do it, some people say you can't. Just look at your experience as well. Got some questions coming in, so I'm going to answer those. So Sheridan says, how do you sow carrots? That is something that I've been working on for a few years now. I used to be awful at growing carrots. I used to get no germination. The thing I was doing wrong, make a little trough, put them really heavily, and then I cover them up and just waiting. Carrots take a very long time to germinate, and watering them every day. You'll get almost 100% germination doing that. Can you grab the camera from... Can I grab the camera? I'm not too sure what you mean there. If you want to drop it down below, I'll understand a little bit more, sorry. So where can I buy best way to buy a sprinkler? I bought mine on Amazon because I think I always say I spent 20 quid, but I think I looked the other day and it was 12 quid or something like that. Whenever there's an Amazon sale, that's when I get my stuff. I get everything from Amazon. You can get them from garden centres if you're there and they're cheap, pick one up, but they do tend to be a little bit more expensive in a garden centre. We've just installed this week a drip system. Do you need a drip system? No. Is it nice to have a drip system? Yes, especially if it's automatic. It just takes a little bit of labour off your hands, but by no means do you need one. We really want gardening to be accessible, especially if you're a beginner. So if you've got a hose, then use that. If you've got watering cans, use that. It's just whatever's better. Best thing for your plants really is rainwater. You'll notice once it rains, your plants will get massive, and that's because there's so much nitrogen in there. So if you can do a rainwater catchment, that's even better still. Watering only once a day, so it depends I water my garden once a day, but once again, it depends what you're growing. So if it's something that's really small, vulnerable, or you've just planted out, sometimes I even plant, when my strawberries were fruiting, they needed water during this heat wave twice a day, or they just completely, utterly flop over. So is bearing that in mind. Just use your eyes. If you walk out, your courgette is laying down or wilted in some way, then give it a little bit more water. If they look okay, then they're fine, but I'm watering at the moment pretty much every single day. But once again, you don't want to water them really lightly. If you water things really lightly, you'll teach them to have their roots right at the beginning of the soil, and they will rely on you. They'll wait for water. What you want to do is teach them that they have to drop their roots extremely for water, and then you're less likely to have this sort of situation where you're having to water them so frequently. Is hot weather good? Hello. Is hot weather good? Yes. Hot weather's very good, but you have to make the sort of arrangements that you need to make. So for example, just making sure that you are watering, and if you need to, using shade cloth and things like that in the greenhouse is great. That's what you want to be doing, just so that anything that, say, lettuces, they don't particularly like, the hot weather, they do bolt. I've seen quite a few people having bolting lettuces. If you are struggling with lettuces, this is what I do. Just plant them, let them grow, and then pick them out when they're little and use those. I don't let them turn into big heads, especially in this weather, because they do not like, they're like under plants, they don't like the direct sunlight or the direct heat. So if you do have somewhere shady, like underneath your cucumbers or where they're shaded out by another plant, they do better there. So it does depend what you are growing. All right, I hope that was helpful anyway. So yeah, if you've got any questions or anything that you want to ask, drop it down in the comment section, and I'll help you as much as I can. So yeah, we were just talking about it being super hot and needing to water quite a lot. Is there any good manure to use? It's a good question. It's a very good question. So manure is one of those things. I use horse manure in the garden, and that is it a good manure? Yes. Is it perfect? No. Cow manure is meant to be one of the better ones because you don't get any weeds. But it's one of those things, use what you've got and use what you can get for free. If you can only get wood chips for free, then that's the best you're going to get. That's great. In a couple of years' time, that'll be amazing manure. Also, homemade compost. But once again, it's whatever you can get or whatever you can afford. I personally like free. So it's whatever, you can do for that. Hello. Do I have any tips for growing cauliflower? Yes, I do. So cauliflower is something that I'm growing an absolute ton of this year. I love cauliflower. The best thing I do that I find is I use a cauliflower called All Year Round, which doesn't actually get sown all year round. You have a little break until I think it was October off the top of my head. Basically what I do is I put them in, I'm on my sewing table, I put them in a cell like this, sort of maybe an inch to 2 inch pot, fill it up with multi-purpose compost and perlite, which is this. If you don't want to do that, you can use seed compost, is absolutely fine. And then I put them 2 in a pot and then just cover them up. Keep them really well watered. At this moment in time, I do put them out, but you have to bear in mind the butterflies will be on it. They're obviously looking to lay their eggs. So that is the only thing that I do. And then when I get a good 4 leaves, I might transfer them if I don't have any room to a bigger pot, or I just stick them out. But you must cover them up. That is probably the key of having them, and then just keeping them well watered until they're established and pinning up their leaves so that the curds stay nice and white. Have more success with salad rather than full lettuce. Me too. I love a cut and come again. I personally think that's better than having a full head of lettuce, because at this time of year as well, if you let that dry out, it does become bitter, and that's not what we like, is it? Are you doing peppers plants? I am. They're really slow this year, depending on the heat. So I find that they do sulk. So if you got yours out early, if they hit below 10 degrees, they sulk. Mine did, because I was going on holiday. So they did sulk for a couple of weeks, but now they are really kind of going off to the races. What I'd done to really kickstart them was I have an absolute putrid concoction of stinging nettles and bindweed that I have in some stagnant revolting water. I use that and I dilute it 10 to 1. And that has really turned them a beautiful dark green, and it's really made them pump out them leaves. Remember, yes, we don't want to overdo the leaves, but at this time of the year we want lots of leaves, and then bear off the fertilizer, switch to something like a tomato fertilizer, and you will get fruit and get those insects in. That's the best thing for you. I love watching your videos. Thank you, Kim. Hello for everyone who's coming in and saying hello. If you've got any comments, drop them down. I'm trying to go through all the comments and helping you out with any of your garden needs. I've been growing now for 9 years. I can't believe it's been 9 years. It's gone so quickly. And yeah, if I can help you out, then that would be great. So I'll show you now. I haven't actually shown this yet on any of my videos. Look at this garlic. I'm well impressed with my garlic this year. To show it off. That's probably the best garlic that I've grown. It's quite a small one, but some of them are big as my fist. They're so good. Considering they were covered in rust, I was well impressed with that this year. I wonder if all of you have started harvesting. It does feel like summer's about to come, isn't it? I actually harvest my first tomato today. It was only a little cherry one, but it was the first one, and they're absolutely dripping in green tomatoes this year, so I was super excited about having those in the garden. And as you can see, I'm super low in all my canned goods, so it's going to be really important that those come in this year, because if not, I don't know what I'm going to be eating. Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Sowing, talking about sowing, today I've actually sown a load of broccoli. You can't, well, I haven't found a cauliflower that I can sow at the moment. There's a little gap between now and in a couple of months where you start sowing them again for next year. But I've started with my broccoli, some more cabbages for next year. I've done pak choy and kohlrabi. I don't know if you guys have tried kohlrabi, but it's amazing. And it's really good raw in like salads and stuff like that. And it's quite impressive. Whenever people come around, I make it and they always ask, what is this? Where can you get it? And mostly you have to grow it. You rarely get it in the supermarkets. That's quite an impressive one. Pak choy is a nice one, especially this time of year, because it's really short in the amount of time you need to grow it. What month is best to start? Do you know what? That's one of them things. It's like when you get an allotment, the best time to start is when you have it. So there is no best month. There's this saying, isn't there, that when's the best time to plant a tree? It's either 7 years ago or today. Best time to start is whenever you have time to start. If you haven't wanted to garden up until now, start gardening. Radishes are a really cool thing to grow. You plant them now, 4 weeks and you'll have a radish. Pak choy, 8 weeks, you'll have a pak choy. Now is the time. I think that some people are even planting tomatoes still. I'm not 100% sure about that because I've never done it like that, but I did plant some cucumbers because I lost all my cucumbers this year. I did plant a load and they've come out beautifully, so it's just worth having a go. Really focusing on things that you eat, not things that you buy though, because there's so many things that I grow, love and cherish that I would never buy in the shop, like asparagus is super expensive, courgettes, etc. But I grow tons of them and we eat loads of them. But grow what you enjoy. That is my advice to you, and start whenever you can. If you are just starting out, container gardening is a really good option, and if you get some spuds in now, you can just bring them indoors, even in the garage over the cold period, and you'll have potatoes for Christmas, which is a really great thing to have. And it's really lovely to harvest potatoes when you have little kiddies. It honestly is a magical experience. I've just harvested a load with my 1-year-old, and to be honest, most of them have bites out of them now, but it was a nice experience. So yeah, if you've got any questions, drop them down below. I'm happy to answer them. If you just want to say hi, how are you, or even have a little chat, that's absolutely fine too. But yeah. Hello Dean, how are you? And hello Malcolm, and hello, I'm going to pronounce your name wrong, aren't I? Amora? Is that how you say it? A lovely name. That's my reading ability. Hello everyone, nice to see you on the live. So I just popped in today just to say hello and see if I could help you with any of your garden woes. I know that it can be quite overwhelming this time of year. Sheridan's on it today. What's my best one? So, you know, my favourite thing to grow is tomatoes. I'm a very passionate tomato grower. I think they're best for beginners, and I think that they're so exciting because you have so many varieties. I'm growing 125 varieties of tomatoes, and basically I use them for everything. We've actually got storage tomatoes this year, which I'm super excited about. I've never grown them before. I know that a load of my subscribers are actually growing them along with me, which is epic. So that's probably the most exciting thing I'm growing, is the tomatoes. But probably the best thing that I grow is garlic, because it's so versatile and it's one of those things that you can just set and forget, and it's really low maintenance, so I think it's overlooked massively. I've got some hellos. Nice to see me on the live. Yeah, it's nice to see you too. Thank you for joining. I've got some spring onion seeds. Some of those still not put any in the ground. Have I missed? No, I've actually just sown some extra onions this year. You can grow them. I've even overwintered them in a greenhouse before. It isn't too late yet, but move now. Tomatoes, chilies are my favourite things to grow. Do you know what? They're amazing. With chilies, I love making sweet chili sweet chili sauce, and that is, I've just finished the last jar. It's horrible to make, but it's amazing. So I always make like 2 years worth. It makes you choke, you know, when you heat up chilies. Thank you for the cauliflower hints. What time of year do you sow? Do you sow more than once a year? Yes, I do. With cauliflower, I start off really early. That is off the top of my head. I think it's around about March to June that you can sow them, and then I believe it's October that you can also grow them. So what I'll do both, and what I'll do is the October ones I'll overwinter in the greenhouse, keep them, plant them out next March, and then I'll get a crop next year. I try to have something overwintering every single year. I've actually, last year I overwintered them outside, but I'm pretty sure you're not meant to do that, so I don't want you to lose your crop. That's what I think you're meant to do, but I always try. Why not? They're quite hardy. Struggling with climbing beans this year. What are you struggling climbing beans wise? Is it germination, or is it the fact that they are not cropping as well? Germination, if you have an issue with germination, best thing to do is to soak them overnight in a little bit of water. This will really break down their shells. I actually got some beans here, so I'll show you what I mean. These are my beans I've saved, Branston. This sort of coating is a little bit tough for them, and it's really dry, so if you soak them overnight, they're more likely to germinate. And what I do is sow them directly, because beans don't like being transplanted, and put them in pairs. Beans also like germinating with each other. Don't know why. They don't like to be lonely. and you can always thin them out. So just chop off the weakest one. That is the best way to get a really good bean germination, but you've still got loads of time to try that. But if you are worried, if you are struggling with harvesting, the best way to get more beans is to pick them. The more you pick, the more you get. If you let them ripen on the plant, you're telling the plant, please stop, you've made your seeds, everything's done, go to sleep now, and it will just stop. But if you pick them continuously and never get them to ripen, you'll get them continuously, and they'll literally drown you in beans. Make such a bread and bread and butter pickles. Oh, I love them. But the slugs are getting the beans. Oh, yes. Have you tried either slug traps like with beer? I've used it with baker's yeast as well. That works well if you don't have alcohol. We're teetotal, we don't drink, so it's like a bit expensive to buy beer for the slugs. So a little bit of yeast or sourdough starter also works a treat. So you just put that underneath your plants and that should lure them away. There's all these sort of things with copper strips as well, but I've never found it. Another thing I like to do is I come out into the garden with a torch and I physically pick up the slugs, which is gross, I know. Or after a rain, there was a snail eating my lettuces the other day, and it was huge. It was like this big, and I was like, goodbye snail. Of course it landed very happily on the compost heap. But yeah, that's the best thing to do, is just making sure that you're going out and consistently looking for those pests and not having things lying around. Like, I'm terrible for it. If you watch my videos, I know I'm a hypocrite, but having anything like pots or anything like that, they will hide under. So if you get a pot like this and you turn it upside down, the next day if you turn it up, you'll have slugs, and you can keep doing that. You can even do it with a potato, and you'll turn it over and they'll just be in there, and then you can trap them that way. Beans are in a quite weedy corner. Yeah, it is a work in progress, and let's not beat ourselves up about that. You've seen my plot, it's weedy, all right? I'm not perfect, but it is about keeping, if you keep a handle on those weeds, then they will reduce the amount of slugs. But it is easier said than done, I know. I've got such, I wish I only had a weedy corner of my allotment. I have a weedy allotment, let's be honest. But it's about keeping those things up. I find the easiest thing to do is use a hoe. My hoe's outside because I never put it away, but it's got a blade about that big, and I just weed between them, and then you've got so much less space to pick out little weeds around the beans. I find that really well to do. And you know, I actually tilled my a part of my allotment this year to see if it made any difference, and honestly I find the tilled bit a little bit easier to hoe. I know I still get lots of weeds on the no dig, so I have to be honest. Hello. What do you do if you get plants? What do you do if your plants get black bugs on them? So it depends on the black bug, of course. It's probably black fly. What I do is I take a spray bottle and I will put a teaspoon of washed up liquid, something that's not non-toxic. We make our own washed up liquids, we use that, and just spray them. What that will do is it will completely cover the insect, and they need to be able to be around oxygen, because as they move, the oxygen goes into them and basically it suffocates them. I know it's not very nice, or what I also do is just rub them off with my finger. Gross, but when you start gardening, you just get used to these sort of gross things. I used to be terrified of spiders, and I had one crawling up my neck today, and I was just like, well, a pepper plant, well, probably a good copper tape work. I've never used copper tape, so if you guys have used copper tape, drop it down below, because I've never used that, so I can't really comment too much on whether or not that that would be beneficial or not. I've heard I've heard both cases. Like everything in gardening, guys. Some people say it's amazing, my nan's used it, I've used it, my whole generation, my family had. And then some people say there's a slug on the copper tape and they don't mind. So it does depend. I can't speak on that, sorry. What I do is, I said slug traps and things like that, I find them better, and physically removing them and just making sure as much as you're able to not leave pots and things like that about, or leave them about and check them and you'll have loads of slugs on there. Boards are a really good way of doing that as well. Use whatever you got. I don't know if it will stop slugs. I don't know if it will stop slugs. So I think you mean on pepper plants, would it stop the slugs? It won't, the copper tape shouldn't affect the pepper plants at all. And you'd have it on the outside of the pot, so you kind of tape it along like this, so in theory they wouldn't come up, but there are lots of species of slugs that actually come up from the soil themselves, so that wouldn't affect anything like that. Hi Barry, how are you? So if there is a slug in there that's going to burrow its way up, it's not going to be affected at all by the copper. It's only, as far as I know, if they slide over the copper. So it's worth bearing in mind. But it's one of those things that, how much can you do? We have terrible amount of rabbits, and I've just redone all the netting all the way around my allotment, and I noticed that they're actually going under the farmer's field at the back, through a rubble pile into my plot. There's only so much we can do, right? I mean, they've got all day to try to get and eat our crops. We've just got to do as much as we've got to do. So what I do is try one thing. If it works, brilliant. If there's no problem, then don't do anything. That is my go-to move. If you have no problems, then don't do anything. But just try as much as you're able to. Put up some bird boxes. I've got 2 on my allotment, and honestly I can see the birds going in and out, in and out. They're continuously looking for bugs, so that helps with any sort of pest in your garden setting. One year my spinach grew amazingly, the next year it was a disaster. Why do you think that would happen? Every year is different. This is the great thing about gardening. I've been gardening now for 9 years, and every single year has been different. I remember one year that I got these peppers, right, and they were like huge, like this big. They're all red and beautiful. And the next year I did exactly the same thing. I treated them the same, I loved them the same, and they just came out different. What normally happens when you're a new gardener, you normally have a really fantastic year because you're really looking at everything, you're really on it, etc. And they say that it's the second year blues where something will go wrong. It will be colder, there'll be something that happens that didn't happen the year before, and it kind of gets you down a little bit. But honestly, this is an amazing hobby and an amazing thing to be doing. So if you just push through, you'll be getting that amazing harvest again. If you do put spinach a little bit late, like now, it won't be happy. You have to understand that there's a reason why we sow certain crops when we do, because some crops just don't like being hot. So they're really good in the autumn and in the spring, but they don't like being here in the summer. They'll just go to seed because that's where they want to, you know, pass on their genetic information. It's just understanding that crops, and there's been so many that I've really struggled to grow until I've started understanding what they actually want. And that was for me carrots. I really struggled with them, and now I've got wonderful germination in them, and hopefully getting absolute tons of carrots this year, but who knows. Right guys, I'm gonna have to go because it is gonna be bedtime now, and I've got to get everybody off to bed for school in the morning. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye. This is where I awkwardly don't know how to do it. Bye.